Today we're going to talk about using some of our paper stash to put together some card kits for others. Hey, it's Beth. Welcome. Today is the 12 months of Christmas challenge that I started for myself, and it's just a challenge that kind of motivates me and keeps me accountable to working on Christmas projects all throughout the year. My husband and I together do craft shows, and most of them happen in the fall, and I would find myself getting closer to fall and not having any Christmas inventory built up. So I had made a goal to try and get more done throughout the year on my own, and it kind of helped, but not as well as I hoped. So I decided to create a challenge and hold myself publicly accountable for this. And my friend Kathy, who is Stampin' Cat over on Instagram, she is also doing this challenge with me. So you can hop over to Instagram with the link in the description box below and see what she has made for this month. So this month I decided to work on restocking Christmas card kits. I had gone through and kind of did a quick inventory, realized I didn't have a lot of Christmas card kits left. And I like to have some both online and at our craft shows. So went through my stash of Christmas papers and tried to find combinations that I could put together that I had multiples of, so I could get, more than one kit, hopefully at least two, if not more. So for this particular one, I have two different patterns that both came from Hobby Lobby, and they coordinate pretty well. Like the green, I know this one has an off-white background, this one has a light blue, but the greens and the reds work together, and so we're gonna use those together. And then I found some red cardstock in my stash that is going to coordinate as well. And then I printed out a sheet of Merry Christmas sentiments, and I opted to print sentiments instead of hand stamp, just because I knew I was making a lot of kits and wanted to try and keep this kind of quick and easier and more efficient. And so I just printed a whole sheet, and I've cut them down into strips. I just haven't yet cut them to their individual pieces. So when I make card kits, sometimes based on what I have or what the paper is, I may come up with a design on my own. Sometimes I may use card sketches, but I assume that the people who are buying the kits are maybe beginner card makers or people who don't normally make cards. So my kits are not like the advanced card making kits. So when I pick sketches, I try to I pick ones that are kind of fairly simple, that don't have a whole lot of moving parts. Sometimes I do a lot of different layers on them, but these, again, I just decided to keep them simple. So this is the sketch. It is My Favorite Things, sketch number 306, that I'm going to be working on, and use that to cut all the pieces that I'm going to need for my card kits. My hope, I should be able to get at least 2 sets of 6 out of these papers, and then hopefully that leaves more for more in the future if I need to restock. I usually like to start with my card mat, and I was just trying to decide if I wanted to just use this pattern as my mat or go a little smaller and use the red, and I think I am going to bring in the red just for some added interest. So these were 2 left over from some other kits that I'd been working on. So I like to make, if I'm using mats in a kit, I like to make them 4 by 5 1/4, because most of my kits are A2 size for A2 size cards. And I feel like if you are a beginner card maker, the 4 by 5 1/4 works because it gives you more margin around. You're not having to try and line up, a full size card mat, and then sometimes if you only go like leave an 1/8 of an inch border, sometimes that's hard to get it even, and if you don't get it even, it's a little more noticeable. So I just feel like it's easier to center the 4 by 5¼ inch card mat on an A2 size card, which is 5½ by 4¼ if you aren't familiar. So that's what I'm going to do with my cardstock pieces. So I'm going to finish cutting down 12 of those, and then we will work on the next layer. I have my 2 sets of 6 of the card mats cut, and then I had some extra card mats. I need to make a sample card anyway, so I kind of like to have a sample card going off to the side, and as I'm cutting the pieces, kind of build the card just to make sure it's going to look like what I really think it's going to look like, and then I'll use that as the sample card for like to help with labeling and stuff later. So I think I'm going to go with the plaid as the next layer, and I'm going to go, since this was 4 by 5¼ I think I will go at 3 3/4 by 5. I'll go this way. So maybe we'll go 3 3/4 here. Just trying to figure out how to maximize the paper. I know I'm going to have scraps, but I'm always trying to think about how to kind of reduce scraps. So that gives another border. And then I'm going to jump over and we're going to cut the next layer as well, just to, again, to make sure it's going to work. So I had thought about trying to like mix and match, like do a set that has maybe 3 with this as the background and 3 with this as the background, because it would be, then I would have that much left. Or just do all of this, since it's non-directional, as the kind of second matting layer, I guess, and then do all this as the vertical strips. Because I think for the vertical strip, I am going to go at 2 3/4. We'll see if that's wide enough, because this is and I might go ahead and just keep it all like this combination and let the ornaments kind of be the focal point of the card. That might be a good way to go. So I am going to go at 4 inches. So 2 3/4 by 4, and then that should cover the whole card mat and not bleed over onto like the white card base, just to kind of keep it cleaner for whoever's going to be putting them together. And then I have the sentiments, like I said, already printed out, and I kind of did some pre-planning. So looking at the sketch, I knew I wanted a strip sentiment that would kind of come across the center, or come across like the bottom part here. And so knowing that I would have this strip be anywhere from 2½ to probably 3 inches, my sentiment itself is like just over 3 inches. So if I leave a little margin on each side, then it should be about 3½. Oh, more, 3 3/4. We may trim that down. We'll see how that looks. Well, I don't think that looks bad. So we'll kind of let that marinate a little bit, and then I'm going to jump back to my first pattern and finish cutting down the rest of these pieces. So now that I finished cutting down all of the rest of that layer, I'm going to go back to the ornament paper and continue to cut my 2 3/4 by 4 inch pieces, right? Yes. So got these done. So I'm going to go ahead and count out, if I can count and talk at the same time, the pieces that go with each group. And then next I just need to add the sentiments. I'm trying to decide if I want to cut banners. I might see what it looks like. I've got extra sentiments I might see. Or cut a fishtail in the end. If I do a sketch that has fishtails at all, I go ahead and cut them. I don't necessarily, I know that if my youngest daughter, who sometimes enjoys making cards but isn't as experienced, she like really struggles, you know, trying to get even on something like this. So I know that could be a point of frustration. So if I'm going to include a fishtail anywhere in my kit, I try and go ahead and cut it. So all they have to do is just glue everything down, because I'm assuming that a lot of them, I know I'm making a lot of assumptions, but I know there are different card kits out there. You can find other card kits on like Etsy and places like that. So if somebody wants a more experienced card kit with more detailed things, I'm sure they can find that. But I just know from feedback at my craft shows that this is kind of the way a lot of people like to go. Just kind of a fun, relaxing experience. Maybe they want to sit down with their kids, or maybe it's a family craft night and they're all going to make Christmas cards. All right, so now that I have that figured out, I needed to double check that what size I ended up going with. And it was 3 3/4. And then my strip is like 3/4 of an inch tall and then 3 3/4 inches wide. So my next step then is to go through and cut down the sentiment strips that I need for the rest of these cards, and then we can go from there. So I went ahead and finished trimming these down and added the fishtail ends to all of them. And I'm just going to separate them out per set. And I do have an extra. And now I am going to go ahead and put my sample card together. And while I'm doing that, I'll kind of explain how I use the sample card. So I will, the sample card is twofold. One, it helps me to know how the cards are going to look when they're put together, but then it also gives me a finished card to photograph. So if I'm listing my kits online, either on Etsy or on our website, I like to have a photograph of the finished card to go along with the photos of the kit contents. But then I will also include, kind of take a picture and then include it as a label or cover page once I package up the kits. I put the kits in like the cello bags, just the card cello bags. Sometimes I have to go a size up if depending on how thick the kit contents end up being. But I will put those in, and then we'll add like that cover page on the front or a label sticker on the front of the bag. It kind of depends on what else I maybe need to say about the kit, but so I'm trying to decide if I want to add a little extra element. And if so, like I will include this in with the kits as well, but just to kind of give it a little bit, since I might do that. I don't know that these are the scraps that I had left from cutting down my card mats. I don't know. No, I can't go any bigger. It's the only size I can cut. And this is like a little 3/8 to 1/4 inch, so. All right, then the fun part of, I need to cut 36, punch 36 more of the little red circles to add to my kit, and add those in. And then we are going to, once that's done, we are going to look at the scraps that I have left, because if I make more than one kit, I try to list those online so that I'm not going through the process of creating the listing just for like one-off But if I only have enough to make like one of a type of kit, which I might be able to get out of the scraps, then those are the ones I like to put in our craft shows, just because I don't have to go through the process of listing them. I can just stick them in the basket. So I'm gonna get punching. Finished punching all of my little circles, and I actually added 3 extra circles per kit just because I feel like I lost some when I was punching, and I'm sure people, when they're going to put their cards together, that they might lose some as well. And then I just realized I'm short a card base because I used one for here. But then I will make sure I add 6 card bases and 6 envelopes to each kit. I will have to make another one for this one. Okay, set that aside. And then I have that done. So I want to look at these pieces that I have left. I think I might be able to do the same layout, just switch up the patterns, which I didn't really want to do in the first place, but I have several sheets of the ornament paper left, but not much of the plaid. So I might do strips out of here and then use up some more of this paper to do the card mats. So what did I say? They were 3 3/4 by 5. And I do have an extra mat. We do 3 3/4 by 5, and then go this way, 4 by 2 3/4. Yeah, I don't think that's too bad. Okay, so I'm going to see I'm going to see if I can get at least 4 full card, like enough pieces to make 4 full cards, if not 6, for like an extra kit to have at shows. So I will get cutting that down and then we'll check in again. All right, so I managed to get 4 more pieces, or enough for 4 more cards for like one small kit out of the scrap. So that will be a like small card kit, and then I have these 2 which will be like the 6 card kits. I know some of you are going to ask how much I sell them for. It kind of depends on the detail, but like something this simple for 6 cards I would probably do like $9 or $10. And then the smaller ones I tend to sell at craft shows, and I just do an even 5 to make it easy. The smaller ones usually have like 4 cards in them. So when I had been pulling out papers, I found some other combinations that worked together. So this is another kit that I have. It was also based off a sketch. I don't have that with me, but I have enough for 2 sets of 6 with this. And then I didn't have I didn't have wide enough pieces to do any more kits with like this width of the striped, but I had a thinner striped, and then my snowman pieces were a little smaller. So I just made an extra kit using those pieces up. And again, like this one off would go into my craft show inventory, but everything else is pretty much the same other than just the size of these 2 pieces. And kits not only have to be sold, you can make card kits for yourself, for your family, to donate. There's, sometimes it's a great way to maybe use up paper you wouldn't normally use, but other people enjoy it. And it makes them easy. It makes it easier for them to create something and, be able to send something that's handmade. So here is another one. Again, fairly simple. And I had enough for 2 sets of 6 on that. And then I have one more, and I do have like extra, I can do, I think, more of these. So like if I were to sell both of these online, I can create more, and the same with the snowman. And then same with the Santa. So this one I actually brought in like some black to go with the Santa paper. So I have 6 of those. So the next steps then, now that I have my kits put together, are to add envelopes, finish the card bases since I was short and created an extra kit I didn't anticipate. So finish the card bases, add envelopes, go ahead and put them in the bags, and then take pictures of all the sample cards so that I can get my like labels or cover pages made up. And I will like just kind of do all of that at one time just to kind of save time. So didn't include that in today's video, but really the important thing is just showing you how I go about making my kits. So I've had questions about that before. And again, if you don't do craft shows, that's fine. Sometimes there's kits I've made up in the past for my girls that they never used, and it's fun for me to go back and just do some kind of mindless crafting. If it's been a long day and I don't feel a lot of creativity, just to get my hands dirty, so to speak, and play with the paper, it's fun to use the kits myself. So that's, you can create kits for yourself, for family, to donate, to gift, and to sell, whatever it is that suits your need. But it's kind of fun to put them together too, knowing that you're going to help somebody else create something fun and crafty. So if you have any questions, if there's things I didn't answer in my process here, let me know. And maybe it gave you some inspiration to go through your stash and put together some kits that you can use somehow. And again, please be sure to check out Kathy's Instagram link in the description box below. Thank you so much for your time, and hope you all have a very crafty day.